Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Preppers, what are some things that you wish you did right that you can take the time and a few extra steps today to ensure that you have the things you need and that they're ready for you and can provide for you in the future? The first thing preppers can do is commit to storing food. Buy some extra food, stockpile it away. What are some of those basic foods that you want to make sure you're adding to your prepper pantry food storage stockpile? Things like beans and rice, oatmeal, dried pastas, plain instant potatoes. Make sure you read the ingredients and choose potato buds, potato flakes. Those foods like rice and beans, pasta, oatmeal can last for 20 or 30 years. Then look at some of the additional foods that will last perhaps for 10 years. Foods like non-fat instant milk, butter powder, cheese powder, flour, dry baking mixes, and dry soup mixes. Some of those foods you may be able to stretch them out for 15 or 20 years, but the best plan is to expect them to last for 10 years and try to rotate them in a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes by trying to get a few extra years out of something, we end up that the food gets wasted, it gets spoiled. So it makes more sense to try to rotate those foods before the risk of failure. Then think about foods that will last indefinitely. Salt and sugar are foods that can last indefinitely. So now that you have those foods, you want to make sure that you store them the absolute best. You want them in an airtight container in a cool, dark, dry environment. You don't have to buy things. You can clean out recyclable containers that have only held food and that are airtight. You can find some that are plastic, like these two. You can find jars. You can even buy canning jars. There's lots of different food containers that you can reuse. You just need to make sure that you clean them thoroughly and that you allow them to dry completely. Now, sometimes you want to make sure that the lids, if they've held something else, that the lids don't still have an odor in them. And what I do is I wash them a few times, maybe soak them in vinegar. If it's a summertime, I might put them out in the sunshine for a few days, which it isn't always possible in the winter to do that. So we have to take into account what we can do according to our climate. Then put the lid on it, allow it to sit closed for a few hours, then open the jar and see if it still has the aroma of whatever was in the jar before. If so, you need to continue to clean that lid a little better, or store it with something that doesn't matter. So for example, this was a pasta sauce jar and I have pasta in it, so even if there was a little bit of an aroma left, it's not going to contaminate the pasta. But if I was trying to store something like, say, flour, and I put it in a pickle jar, I don't want my flour to then take on the aroma of pickles. So you get the idea. You want to make sure that it's as clean and dry as possible. If you have a little bit of money, go ahead and invest in some Mylar bags. Mylar bags can be filled up with these dried foods. You can even add an oxygen absorber to remove all of the leftover bits of oxygen and store them into 5-gallon buckets. The better that we store our food, the longer it's going to last. I don't like to store foods like pasta in Mylar bags simply because if you put in an oxygen absorber, it sucks it so tight that the little sharp edges on pasta could actually make a few little holes, pinpoint holes that you may not even notice, so that you do need to take some of that into account. You can also buy some of these foods already sealed in number 10 cans designed to last for 10, 15, 20, and 30 years. I buy some of those products from Goshen Farms. I can even pick them up at Walmart in Alaska, and I have ordered them online from Walmart.com and also from Amazon, and the prices do fluctuate. So if there are some of those food items that you're interested in, keep looking back, and when you see the price go down to something that is affordable, go ahead and order it. You can also order from the LDS or the Mormon Church, and those foods are basic foods. They come in a box with 6 of that can. So when you order from, say, Goshen Farms, you're ordering 1 can of that food, but when you order from the LDS or the Mormon Church, you're getting a box of 6 of those identical cans. So realize that you can get quite a bit of food for not very much money, depending on which food items you order and where you order them. One note about oxygen absorbers: never use oxygen absorbers with sugar or salt because they will turn into a big hard brick. And nobody wants to try to take foods that should be granular and try to turn them from a hard brick back into a granulated food. If you store them properly in the first place, you don't have to worry about some of those challenges. If you're going to go to the time and expense of gathering food, buying the food, bringing it home, take that extra step to store it properly. Sometimes we get in a hurry, or we think, oh, well, I'll get to it later, and we simply put it aside in the pantry. And then what can happen is your bags and packages can get holes in them. They might have critters get infested in there. Something could get spilled on it, and then say like a package of pasta, it's just going to get stale because it's only in, say, cellophane or a cardboard box. And the better you store your food, the longer it's going to last, which is part of the strategies of being preppers, is that we want to have extra food because we want it to last. So take those extra steps to store it properly. Rotate your food also. Some of the longest lasting foods, yes, you can put them away and leave them for decades, but you want to learn to incorporate some of these basic foods into your regular meal plans. If you're going to be storing rice, beans, pasta, oatmeal, instant potatoes, you need to actually rotate them. Yes, you can put some of it aside for the longest haul, but it should be food that you should be storing food that you are familiar with, that you're willing to eat and you know how to use it. And you can then have some smaller containers. That's what I do. That's one reason I like the smaller containers, because it's easy to put it into my working pantry and work my way through it. And then I can continue to replace it a little at a time. We don't always have the time, the money, or the desire to go buy 50 pounds of rice or beans at a time. And maybe we want to just spend $1 or $2 getting it a little at a time. So you can still do that and store it away in a smaller container and rotate through it a little at a time, so that it's part of the foods that you know how to prepare, and then you're familiar on how to use them and eat them and serve them to your family. You'll find recipes that you enjoy eating, so that it's a sensible food item that you're storing. So while we may want to eat all the freshest foods possible, if the day comes when those foods are not available or they're not affordable, you're going to be very glad that you have some of these basic foods that you can go to your pantry and continue to make meals for your family. That's one of the whole reasons to be a prepper, is that no matter what the day brings, you will be able to take care of yourself, provide your basic needs. That's such a security that it gives me great peace of mind, and I want others to have that as well. We want to be able to know that day to day, life can go along balanced and normal because we have supplied some of the things that we count on having on a day-to-day basis. Then no matter what kind of an emergency comes, whether you lose your job, you run out of money, you get sick, or there's a weather emergency or a natural disaster, then having something to eat won't be the first crisis you need to deal with when there are bigger problems that we need to deal with. So then you'll be able to go ahead, continue to feed your family, and then figure out what to do next with the other issue that's looming on the horizon. If you have all the basic foods that you need, then it doesn't matter if nothing happens, but likely things will happen. But if nothing happens, it doesn't matter. You'll still have the food that you can provide meals for your family for a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months, even a year, depending on how much food you decide to store and stockpile. And so if nothing happens, it doesn't matter. You haven't wasted your time or your money. You still have food you can go and prepare meals from it. So whether there's a disaster or no disaster, you'll be able to provide meals for your family. Say there's a weather event, you can't get to the store, you can make food and provide it for your family. What if the weather's so nice you don't want to go out? You want to stay home and enjoy your family, play in the yard, whatever. You don't have to go to the store. You can make meals with the basic foods that you have. So why wouldn't you want to be a prepper and have a prepper pantry food storage stockpile? You can use this food whether it's the best day ever or the worst challenge that you've ever faced. So if you're considering in the future things you'll wish you did right, stocking up on food and storing it properly will be probably right at the top of the list of things that you'll be glad you did right, and you don't want to have any regrets over such a simple thing to do. What are some other things you'll wish you did right in the future that we can plan for today? Share it in the comments below so we can address those issues and go forward with confidence, knowing that we're facing the challenges to the best of our ability. I hope you'll like my video, share it with someone else you think might enjoy it, and please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.